Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being with us. Dr. Maya Angelou was a great American author, poet, dancer, actress, and singer. She was born on April 4th, 1928. She passed on May 28th, 2014. Since her passing, the Diversity Council has sought out a way to pay homage to her and celebrate her life and legacy. Today, we pause to celebrate the great Dr. Maya Angelou. Thank you for making time to be with us today for this program. On behalf of the Diversity Council, I want to say welcome. We welcome you. And now, without further ado, we're going to follow the program as it is printed in the bulletin that you have. And we will start with our Leslie community poets, who will be reading their favorite Maya Angelou poems. And we're starting with the student. Thank you.
Okay. Should I be good right here? Is this loud enough? Okay. Sorry, I'm not. Kind of nervous. I'm Matthew Saluti. I'm a freshman here in the LUCAD program, and I'm an animation major, and I really love Maya Angelou's work, so it was an honor to be able to read this in front of everyone. I'm going to be reading Alone, just because I feel like that poem's really helped me through a lot of stuff. So, lying thinking last night how to find my soul a home, where water is not thirsty and bread is not stone. I came up with one thing, and I don't believe I'm wrong, that nobody but nobody can make it out here alone. Alone, all alone, nobody but nobody can make it out here alone. There are some millionaires with money they can't use. Their wives run around like banshees. Their children sing the blues. They've got expensive doctors to cure their hearts of stone, but nobody, no nobody can make it out here alone. Alone, all alone, nobody but nobody can make it out here alone. Now if you listen closely, I'll tell you what I know. Storm clouds are gathering, the wind is gonna blow. The race of man is suffering, and I can't hear this moan, 'cause nobody but nobody can make it out here alone. Alone, all alone, nobody but nobody can make it out here alone. Do you want me to show? No. Sorry, I have class.
Hi, I'm Deborah, and I will be reading the Human Family. Oh boy, can I see good enough to read this, but I will try. Okay. I note the obvious difference in the human family. Some of us are serious, some of us thrive on comedy. Some declare their lives are lived a true profundity, and others claim they really live the real reality. The variety of our skin tones can confuse, bemuse, delight, brown and pink and beige and purple, tan, blue, and white. I've sailed upon the 7 seas and stopped at every land. I've seen the wonders of the world, not yet one common man. I know 10,000 women called Jane and Mary Jane, but I've not seen any one who really were the same. Mere twins are different, although their features jive, and lovers think quite different thoughts while laying side by side. We love and we lose in China. We weep on England's moors. We laugh and moan in Guinea and thrive on Spanish shores. We seek success in Finland. We are born and die in Maine. The mere ways we differ the major, we're the same. I note the obvious difference between each one and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are more unalike. We are more alike, my friends, more than we are unlike.
Hello, everyone. My name is Philippe Vieira, and I'll be reading a poem titled Touched by an Angel. We, unaccustomed to courage, exiles from delight, live coiled in shells of loneliness, until love leaves its high holy temple and comes into our sight to liberate us into life. Love arrives, and in its train come ecstasies, old memories of pleasure, ancient histories of pain. Yet, if we are bold, love strikes away the chains of fear from our souls. We are weaned from our timidity. In the flush of love's light, we dare be brave, and suddenly we see that love costs all we are and will ever be. Yet it is only love which sets us free.
Good afternoon. My name is Abe Avadi, and I've chosen a rather dark poem which speaks of the misery from which love and rising emerge. A plagued journey. There's no warning rattle at the door, nor heavy feet to stomp the foyer boards. Safe in the dark prison, I know that light slides over the fingered work of a toothless woman in Pakistan. Happy prints of an invisible time are illumined. My mouth agape rejects the solid air, and lungs hold. The invader takes direction and seeps through the plaster walls. It is at my chamber, entering the keyhole, pushing through the padding of the door. I cannot scream. A bone of fear clogs my throat. It is upon me. It is sunrise, with hope, its arrogant rider. My mind, formerly quiescent in its thug encasement, is strained to look upon their rapturous visages, to let them enter even into me. I'm forced outside myself to mount the light and ride, joined with hope. Through all the bright hours, I cling to expectation until darkness comes to reclaim me as its own. Hope fades, day is gone into its irredeemable place, and I'm thrown back into the familiar bonds of disconsolation. Gloom crawls around, lapping lasciviously between my toes at my ankles, and it sucks the strands of my hair. It forgives my heady fling with hope. I am joined again into its greedy arms.
I'm Prilly Sandville,
I'm Maud Petit Frère.
and we're going to do this together. Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may tread me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by the soulful cries.
Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard? 'Cause I laughed like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the arts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise.
I rise.
I rise.
So let's give our community poets another rousing applause. Thank you all for sharing Maya's words in this space. We really appreciate you being here and offering those poems. So right now, I'm going to briefly introduce our keynote speaker for the day. Our keynote speaker is Danielle Legro-George. Danielle is a professor in the Creative Arts and Learning Division of the Graduate School of Arts here at in the Graduate School of Education, here at Lesley University. She is a writer and the author of a book of poems entitled Maroon. She has been published in many publications as noted in your program. Her awards for writing include a 2014 Massachusetts Cultural Council Fellowship in Poetry, and she is the new Boston Poet Laureate of the City of Boston. We are so delighted to have her serve as the keynote speaker for today's celebration. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you, Yolanda, for such a kind introduction. I'm going to go here. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to hear. There's so much stuff on this desk, so I'm going to move some stuff around. It is a pleasure to hear these poems that we just heard out loud. Oops, sorry. Hold on. Housekeeping moment. Sorry. To hear these poems out loud where they should live, in the air, in addition to living on the page and here in this space with us. It's a pleasure to hear these poems that address what it means to struggle, poems that take on what it means to celebrate ourselves, poems that inspire, that call us phenomenal, that dare us to love, because in the words of their author, as read by Philippe, it is only love which sets us free. So I was asked to speak this afternoon by a committee of the Diversity Council, and in the committee's first planning meeting, there arose the question of how to pronounce the name of this woman, right, who wrote the words that we heard, words we're familiar with. I want you to hang on to that question for a little bit, okay? So what does her name sound like, this woman, this poet, civil rights activist, nightclub dancer, yes? A woman who wrote a remarkable memoir in 1969 entitled, I Know Why a Caged Bird Sings, which stayed on the New York Times bestseller list for an entire 2 years. That book, in using the techniques common to fiction writing to present autobiography, pushed against, altered, and expanded the genre of American autobiography at the time that it was written. Literary critic Susan Gilbert states that the book was reporting not only one person's story, although autobiography, but the story of a collective. Scholar Selwyn Cujo agrees and identifies the book as representative of the convention in African American autobiography as a public gesture that speaks for an entire group of people. And we see this in the appeal of her work, not only to African Americans, but especially to African Americans. Right? In fact, the book made literary history as the first nonfiction bestseller by a Black woman in the United States. I Know Why a Caged Bird Sings is thematically a celebration of Black womanhood, a critique of racism, a narrative that underscores the importance of family and explores the quest of self-definition, independence, and personal dignity. Tayari Jones, a writer, notes that this Black woman from the American South had already proven that her life was one fit for literature. She had a life fascinating enough to capture the attention of everyday folks who looked to books to sort out what was what in this complicated country of ours. Now back to the earlier question, how do we say her name, in addition to sing her praises? Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Do you say Maya Angelou? Do you say Maya Angelou? Who are the Maya Angelou? Okay. Nice and high. Okay, Maya Angelou. And who say Maya Angelou? So it seems to be split. Well, we will see. Yes, thank you, Rodney. This chapter. All right. So when we were trying to figure that out, the committee and I, while we were trying to figure this out, Philippe found an audio clip, right, that I'd like to play for you now. So.
Hello, my name is Maya Angelou. It's a very beautiful name. I know. I like it. I was born with the name Marguerite Johnson. However, I had a brother. My brother was 2 years older than I and a smarty patootie. He had a lisp and he stuttered, so he couldn't say Marguerite. So he called me Mai. And then when he was about 9, he read about the Mayan Indians and how proud they were and how beautiful they were. And so he named me Maya. And he refused to allow me to be answered to any other name since I was Maya. And the entire family, my mother's people and my father's people, had to call me Maya. And then I married a man who his name was Angelou. So I became Maya Angelou. But I liked the sound of it, and I even liked the marriage. But alas, the marriage didn't last. But the name did. Since I had become known as Maya Angelou, as a dancer and a singer, I kept the name Maya Angelou, and that was over 50 years ago.
All right. Thank you, Philippe. I was among the Maya Angelou people until I heard this clip. So in this brief clip, we learned some interesting facts about Maya Angelou. She was born Marguerite Johnson and allowed herself to be renamed by her brother. Right? Her Maya, then, is both a reflection of brotherly love and of his and her learning, of their expanding notions of the world, with reference to the Maya, the First Nation peoples in southern Mexico and northern Central America. It seems we see a name transformed through positive relationship and love. And even while speaking of her failed marriage, she speaks of her husband, I think or her ex-husband, with great generosity, right? She says, I like the sound of it, that name Angelou, and even liked the marriage, but alas, the marriage didn't last, but the name did, she says, right? So we hear in her voice a recognition and acceptance of her own journey, an undeniable warmth, and we hear strength. I hear strength. She is comfortable in her name, in herself, despite the great challenges she faced early on in life. The severe racism of Stamps, Arkansas, where she lived as a child. The sexual assault she survived as a young person, and the murder of the man who assaulted her by her uncles, and the ensuing trauma. She didn't speak for years and turned to books and literature, and then later wrote unflinchingly about her childhood. Here is a woman, notes the writer Tayari Jones, who showed how to survive rape and racism and still be joyful. I'll add that she was not only joyful, which is an incredible thing to be in light of these things, she was an extraordinarily productive person, a national and global citizen, and marvelous artist who had a super rich life. At 16, and this is an image of a young Maya Angelou, she moved to San Francisco because she'd won a scholarship to study dance and acting at the California Labor School. And it was there in San Francisco that she became the first black female cable car conductor and also began her life as an artist. She went on to publish 7 autobiographies. I'll let my technical guy help me. She went on to publish 7 autobiographies, 3 books of essays, plays. She was involved in the production of films, television shows, and of course, she produced several books of poems across a career of more than 50 years. She received dozens of awards, more than 50 honorary degrees. She was very active among men and women of the American Civil Rights Movement. Her friends and colleagues included Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Oprah Winfrey, James Baldwin. She recited a poem at the presidential inauguration of Bill Clinton in 1993. She was active until the day she died. In fact, she canceled a speaking engagement 2 days before she died, right, last May. So this speaks to her energy and how active she was. And then, of course, her name appeared in newspapers, social media, and communities around the world in tributes in May. Her name went around the world, her name. So that initial question of how we pronounce her name, and listening to that clip of Maya Angelou speaking about something as simple and universal as a name, allows us to think about names, about our names, right? How we come into them. Who names us? And out of what impulses those names come? Love? Fear? Something else? How we embrace certain names? How we reject or adopt the names that don't truly belong to us or are undeserved? How we change our names and why? And what are the contexts for these changes? And what is the work that it takes to hold on to our true names, the ones that most reflect our humanity, our full humanity? I believe Maya Angelou's work has everything to do with naming and articulation, with how we situate ourselves and claim ourselves in contexts that may not claim or value us, right? How we love ourselves in the face of the structures and the people who tell us that our lives don't matter or matter less than. She writes, and as was read so beautifully by Prilly and Maud, "You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may tread me in the very dirt, but still like dust." What? A. Very nice. "Not only will I rise, but I will rise with some sassiness," she says. She tells us, "Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Furthermore, does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs?" Here, we have her recognition of a label that is not reflective of the speaker or the voice of the poem. She writes, "You may write me down in history." History's a weighty thing, right? But that's not my name, right? Are you upset that I don't own that name? Does my sassiness upset you? Or as the kids say, are you hating, right? But guess what, she says, too bad, right? The poem is deeply gendered, and from a decidedly female perspective, evokes the history of racism and slavery in the United States, a period which lasted, as you know, for centuries from the colonial period through Emancipation Proclamation of 1863. In that poem, same poem, she writes, "Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise, up from a past that's rooted in pain. Right? I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise." Enslaved women the world over, and especially here in the United States, had sexual violence visited upon them regularly. This violence was not only not criminal, but it was lucrative for slave owners, beneficial to local and national economies. Right? Children who were born out of such aggression became sources of revenue. They could be sold by their owners, their fathers, right? Or serve in the system of unpaid labor that helped, I would argue, build America. Enslaved women were forced to mother and nurse children not their own, at the same time watching their own children taken from them. Black women's bodies were sites of reproduction. This thought is profoundly disturbing and part of our history, part of American history. Maya Angelou is not afraid to evoke this awful past, descend into it. And also at the same time, she's not afraid to celebrate Black womanhood against this bitter context. She affirms Black femininity, whose source is not limited by that history. She writes, "Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave." So in addition to touching upon history referenced in the poem, I think it's useful to place this poem in the time that it was written, at the intersection of civil rights and feminist women's liberation movements of the 1960s and 70s, when people were engaged in fierce struggles for human and civil rights, at a time of exploding tensions across the country and globe, at a moment of anti-colonial movements occurring in Latin America, in the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia, in communities of struggle for social justice. Here, in many contexts, Black women were asked to choose whether they would support the women's movement or the Black Power civil rights movement, whether they would privilege womanhood or blackness. Right? A number chose not to choose and began to articulate what is now called intersectionality. It's a theory first named in 1989 by legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw, which argues that the experience of being a black woman cannot be understood in terms of being black or of being a woman considered independently, but must include the interactions which frequently reinforce each other. In other words, the theory suggests and seeks to explore how various categories such as gender, race, class, ability, sexual orientation, religion, caste, species, or other axes of identity interact on multiple and often simultaneous levels, contributing to a systematic injustice and social inequality. Heady stuff. Right? But writing in the 1960s, Maya Angelou asserted her blackness and her femininity simultaneously, right? Making manifest the idea that you couldn't separate parts of your identity when it came to social justice concerns and when it came to being a human being, right? Her work was gendered. Her work was black. Her work was profoundly human. She owned the names that belonged to her and rejected those that did not. Right? And in Phenomenal Woman, she writes, "Now you understand why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need for my care. 'Cause I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me." This is a poem for all women, not just black women. She tells us this, right? Her work is profoundly human in exploring her flaws and greatness, the challenges she encountered as she walked, danced, sang, wrote, shed tears, thought, protested, acted, traveled in and through the world. She spoke deeply about her own humanity, and that allowed us and allows us to see our own humanity, our own true names. And therein, I believe, lies her genius and makes her, of course, a phenomenal woman. Thanks. And now, we move to the audience interaction portion of the afternoon. So get ready, audience. So it's going to involve thinking about our own names, ourselves, and possibly, if you wish, writing poems about ourselves and our origins. Okay? Are you with me? You willing to go? Okay, well, let me ask you this. How many have written poems before? How many of you have written poems before? Nice and high so I can see. Now I have to put on my glasses so I can really see. Okay. Okay, even Tina over there has written a poem. Okay. Who has never, ever written a poem, ever, in his or her life? You don't have to be shy. Pardon? Who's going to say it? Well, you can be daring. Okay, so it seems to, you have never, okay, so today perhaps maybe your first poem writing experience. Okay, so many of you have written poems before, all right? So what are features of poems? Like, who can give us a definition of poetry as we embark in this poetry writing exercise? What do you know about poetry? You know that every good educator must activate the prior knowledge of his or her students, right? Am I not being a good pedagogue? Okay, so what do we know already about poetry?
Archibald MacLeish said that it was the pains of turning blood into ink.
Oh my, the pains of turning blood into ink. So it may be painful? Yes, okay. Okay, maybe painful today. What else do you know about poetry?
It comes from the heart.
It comes from the heart. Okay, so poetry can be heartfelt. Yes. Emotional. Yes. That it uses images. Yes.
Self-expression.
And it's a form of self-expression. Yes. Jack?
It often has the power to name things that are there but not felt.
Yeah, it has the power to name things, right? And then once they're named, we say, oh my goodness, of course, right? Yes. Okay. Yes.
It seems to me that poetry is something of a blending of writing and singing.
Ah. So,
There's some conjunction there.
yes, there are elements of musicality, such as rhythm and rhyme and so on, right, in poetry. Yes, Bob. It is the evocative, what an elegant description, the evocative use of language. Yes, the evocative use of language. What else? Anybody else want to add to our definition, our building definition of poetry? Philippe?
It enables a creative form of thinking.
Yes, it is a creative form of thinking, yes. It distills, right? So yeah, there's a density often, right, associated with poetry. There's condensation. Yes.
It bridges generations
Yeah, it bridges generations
and peoples.
and peoples. Yeah, art in general, I think, has that great ability, right? Right? Contains the power of empathy. We can step into another's shoes through a piece of art, a work of art. Alan.
Color and imagery through words.
Woo! Color and imagery through words. There you go. Kathy.
It speaks to places inside us that don't respond to things like logic and, A to Z.
Yeah, right? The nonsensical, the wondrous, the whimsical. Right? Yes, often occur in poetry. Sir? The music of eternity. Whoa, sending it out into the universe. Big, big definition of poetry. Yes. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Disappointment or rejection.
It can contain disappointment or rejection. Yes. True. Okay. Yes, Anha.
A little bit of the thing that has already been said. It's like dancing with words.
Dancing with words, yes. In fact, the ancient Greeks had a word called musike, which referred to music, also dance, poetry, and education as well. Ellen?
It's cathartic and going with what this gentleman already said.
Yeah, it allows you to work through pain. Yeah. Yes?
It's a personal truth.
Personal truth? Yes, it can contain personal truth. Okay. All right. So now let me ask you this tough question. Poetry is a form of writing, right? What's the difference between poetry and prose? Hard question. What's the difference between poetry and prose as writing? Because we're going to be composing poetry, right? Tough one. All right, I'm going to tell you. Everybody, I'm going to tell you. Oh, Abe.
Well, they're both descriptive, but there's a conciseness to poetry that you don't need a whole paragraph sometimes if you find the right words.
Yeah.
That conveys an entire universe of meaning rather than having to, and in my experience, I found that the usual way of understanding.
Yeah,
you know,
expository writing or
exactly.
the whole narration.
Exactly.
Oh my God, I'm going to kill myself. Narrating of a story, right?
And that's why I think that what Philippe said is so important, that the idea that creative poets can condense understanding into these two or three word phrases that just are, remarkable.
Yeah, and that often happens through the use of metaphor and simile.
Yeah.
Metaphor
Right.
is a comparison using unlike objects, right? And so you can leap from, the sun to a disc on the ground, right? You make that connection very quickly in poetry.
Right.
Yes, and condensation. Prilly, and then I think there was another hand.
I'm
Prilly.
not sure how to say this, but it allows for silence or stillness. way and pause that's different from Eric.
Yeah, there's a lot of room for experimentation in poetry, and it does allow for silence. And you can use structure, right, to support stopping. Right? Okay. All right. Eric. Mark, I'm sorry, Mark.
There's a freedom in poetry, whereas typical writing might have rules of grammar or rules of like MLA
APA.
Exactly. On the other side of the freedom, there's also a form of poetry that you can enter into and express that freedom. So there might be rhyme or a certain way of laying out the lines on the page, different stuff like that.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
freedom
Yes, freedom and form. You don't have to conform to the rules of conventional grammar, right? You can make up your own rules, but you have to be what? Consistent, right? E.E. Cummings said, forget about capitalization, right? For whatever reason, I don't want to capitalize. So many of his poems didn't contain caps, right? He created this world and was consistent to it. But then there are these poetic forms, right, that have come to us through time and for which you have to meet certain kinds of rules. The haiku, many of you are familiar with haiku, right? A haiku, what's one rule of making a haiku? You have to do what? 5-7-5, yeah. 5 syllables in the first line, 7 in the second, and 5 in the third. 5-7-5. What else is another rule for haiku? Pardon?
You're not present as a kind of, as yourself. There's a kind of drop of the subject and object kind of view.
Yeah, you remove yourself and you observe what's in front of you. It's like you're taking a snapshot of a scene, generally of nature. Okay, good. So already you know all this stuff about poetry, right? And let me give you the fundamental distinction between poetry and prose. You're writing your report to your dean, or you're writing the great American novel, right? You're typing along on the line. What happens here? This is the margin.
Go to the next line.
Bing! For those of you who remember typewriters, right? And then what happens? Bing! And then you turn on. Bing! So, who determines or what determines when you turn the line?
The margin.
The margin does. Right? Guess what? In poetry, who or what determines when you turn the line? You do. You do. Right? So you write the line, I shall not be moved. It's just a sentence across, period, right? So it's a line. It's a poetic line. Say you decide to write the line differently. You write I, you turn the line, shall not be moved on the second line. Where is there now emphasis where there had not been in that first construction? On the, or on the I, or there shall not be. I. So you see the slight shift in meaning that occurs as a result of a deliberate turning of the line. So that's the power, it's a great power of poetry. Right? The author determines when to turn the line, unless you're working with a form, as Mark suggested earlier. All right? So with poetry, you turn the line. Poetry has a tendency to pack a lot in small space, as has been suggested. Poetry has a tendency to be musical, so the use of rhythm and rhymes. The use of imagery is very strong in poetic creation, and the fundamental unit, the unit of composition is not the paragraph as with prose, it is the line, the unit of composition. So just things to think about, but then of course, when you're composing poetry, you throw all of that theory out, right? And you write from yourself, right? From your mind, your heart, all of where you are. All right, so now here begins our poetry exercise. If you will just repeat. I want you to, as this is going around, in your pre-writing exercise, In your pre-writing exercise, oh, how am I doing for time? Okay. In your pre-writing exercise, think about your own name. Okay. Okay. Oh, here are some pens. Or pencils.
Anyone need a pencil?
Okay. How long does this part go on?
250.
250. Oh, it's already 250.
No, you started it.
Oh, it starts. Okay. All right. Here's what I'd like you to do. Before we read this poem together, on the back side of the poem, I want you to think about your own name. Okay? Where does it come from? Do you like your name? Does your name have a meaning? Does your name represent a national tradition? My name is Danielle Legros George, here in the States. Where I'm originally from, Haiti, it's Danielle Legros George, right? Daniel from Daniel, from the biblical Daniel, who's thrown into the lion's den. I learned this from my grandmother. Thrown in the lion's den because he had interpreted the dreams of Nebuchadnezzar, right? And Nebuchadnezzar did not like what Daniel was telling him, and so he was thrown into the lion's den, but yet he survived, right? So it's a name of a survivor. I think I've had to survive a lot. So I think it's an appropriate name. And then the Legros is a French name, meaning the big. So I'm Danielle the Big. And then Georges is an English name, George. Also a French name. So my name carries with me some history. Haiti was colonized by France. My ancestors are of African descent, of French descent. And so this is some information about my name. So what about your own name? And then, what about the nicknames, the names people call you? I won't tell you what my nicknames are. And do you step into them? Do you reject them? Do you change your name? Have you married into a name? So what does your name say about you and about who you are? Right? All right. So do a little pre-writing, and then we'll read a poem together, and then compose.
Well, not quite that much, but just that you
Okay. Now, this is not a lot of time. I see people writing furiously, which is wonderful. So this will be your homework assignment. You can take it home and continue it at home. This is a start to sort of get the gears going. And now I'd like for us to read this poem that I've distributed, and which I now no longer have a copy of. I'm wondering if I could get a volunteer. Who would like to come? Which brave soul would like to come and read for us this poem? And you can read it from where you are. Slowly. Sharon, may I call? All right. Nice and loud.
Where I'm from. I am from clothespins, from Clorox and carbon tetrachloride. I am from the dirt under the back porch. Black, glistening, it tasted like beets. I am from the forsythia bush, the Dutch elm, whose long gone limbs I remember as if they were my own. I'm from fudge and eyeglasses, from Imogene and Alvear. I'm from the know-it-alls and the pass-it-ons, from perk up and pipe down. I'm from he restoreth my soul, with a cotton ball land, and 10 verses I can say myself. I'm from Artemis and Billy's branch, fried corn and strong coffee. From the finger my grandfather lost to the auger, the eye my father shut to keep his sight. Under my bed was a dress box, spilling old pictures, a sift of lost faces to drift beneath my dreams. I am from those moments, snapped before I budded, leaf fall from the family tree.
Okay, thank you. With poetry, it's often good to read a poem many times, right? At least twice, to read it out loud, to really try to get a sense of it, right? And sometimes when you read it out loud, you'll hear something that you didn't hear when you read it on the page. So I'm going to read it to you a second time after Sharon's first lovely reading, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in this poem and what this tells us about the speaker. Okay. Where I'm From by George Ella Lyon, and this is a woman author. I'm from clothespins, from Clorox and carbon tetrachloride. I'm from the dirt under the back porch. Black, glistening, it tasted like beets. I'm from the forsythia bush, the Dutch elm, whose long gone limbs I remember as if they were my own. I'm from fudge and eyeglasses, from Imogene and Alvear. I'm from the know-it-alls and the pass-it-ons, from perk up and pipe down. I'm from he restoreth my soul with a cotton ball lamb and 10 verses I can say myself. I'm from Artemis and Billy's branch, fried corn and strong coffee, from the finger my grandfather lost to the auger, the eye my father shut to keep his sight. Under my bed was a dress box, spilling old pictures, a sift of lost faces to drift beneath my dreams. I'm from those moments snapped before I budded, leaf fall from the family tree. Okay. So, we started with our names, as a site, as a place of sort of where we're from, who we are. I want us to think about where we're from. And I also want to talk a little bit about this poem as a model for a poem that you will write about where you are from, who you are, what your name is, right? So what are we noticing? Where is George Ella Lyon from? And is this geographic place only? Yeah. What's appealing, what's interesting about this poem for you? Helen?
For me, I love the context, just from my own family, that it's being discovered.
Yeah.
A lot of the words and usage, the context and what we put together just seems at least I'll start there.
Okay. Can you point us to a phrase or an image or a line?
I'll actually just, even from the name and,
Alifair. Yeah.
just from my family history, just Southern, just seems to me as Southern names.
Okay. Okay.
Just those pieces that
Yeah.
the dirt under the back porch.
Yeah.
Southern.
Yes. Yeah, so just the names alone can help situate us geographically, right? Right? So what are some of the names you're from, as we did this exercise earlier? Anybody want to share? How about you? Yes.
Orange Groves
Okay.
and 6 Mile.
Okay. So these are geographical places.
They are.
Okay.
Different ones, but they're geographical.
Okay.
Some of my ancestors and some from where I grew up.
Okay. Okay, so sites, right? Places where, or names where you're from. Names of places, names of people.
Coney Island Empire State Building.
Okay, so we know you're from New York, right? Okay. Raised there. Okay. Other places, places where you're from, or names you're from. Tina? I'm calling on you.
So mine's interesting. So my name actually comes from Barbados. My name was supposed to be Tia, but they wrote Tina on my birth certificate. So as I was thinking about where I'm from, I caught myself trying to compare and contrast Tia versus Tina as my place or where I'm from.
That's really interesting. And so you grew into Tina, and you never thought about switching it back? Okay. So not unlike Maya Angelou, right, who owned Maya. Okay, and so you became Tina. Okay, interesting. Emily, yeah.
I'm from Emil and Van.
Okay,
Emily and Vanessa.
okay. So from, all right, okay. Philippe,
I'm from Stoughton, Mass., but also the Azores in Portugal.
okay. Very different kinds of places. So this speaks of a journey, right? Okay, and tells us about you. Yes.
From farmers and peasants, and the land of the saints.
The land of the
Rural
saints.
Italy.
Ah, okay. That's a nice way to say it. Is that how it's called, or is that how you call it?
It's just big.
Okay.
It's a major presence for my family.
Okay. All right. Yolanda.
My name is from two older cousins, and I realized that one is very inner city for me, I connect to, and the other is very deep south. And so when I think of my name, I think about the city girl, and then there's always the southern child that's still always playing in the dirt in the backyard.
Okay.
Under the porch.
Yeah, the roots,
Yes,
right?
the roots.
And then, again, another story of journey,
Yes.
right? Okay. One or two other folks who want to speak about where they're from, either a geographical location or name? Yes. Okay. Yet another journeyer, right? Okay. And many of us are, right? Many of us are. Whether, we ourselves took the journey, or our parents or our great-grandparents took the journey. Okay. Now let's go back into the poem, which I would like you to use as a model for the creation of your own Where I'm From poem, right? Let's look at the mechanics of the poem. George Ella Lyon says, I am from clothespin. Clothespins. Can one be literally from clothespins? No, okay, obviously not, right? So what might be an object, a small item that takes you back or that connects you to your roots? Right? Anybody want to? Kathy?
I think my first two lines might be something like, I am from casseroles, from cream of mushroom soup.
Okay, there it is. Enough said. Okay. All right. That's a it's a great image, right? A word that appeals to the senses, in addition to creating word pictures. Sir. You're from where? You just went. You have composed a poem, the entire poem. Hey. Okay, very nice. Okay.
My name was given by a priest when I was baptized early time.
Okay.
And it means love of Saint Mark. It means love of which does love and Mark. So Peter Marcus is most of the time our parents give our name after the priest if they don't accept the priest's name.
Yeah.
But fortunately, my name was loved by a community and nice to be called.
Okay.
I'm a writer, a novel writer,
Okay.
published several novels.
Oh. Wow. Okay. So you are right up there with Maya Angelou.
I'm a captain writer now,
Okay.
and I'm happy to join you.
Oh.
This is just podcast.
Oh, well, thank you. It's great to have you with us today. Okay. Okay. So, objects, right? Objects, names from Clorox and carbon tetrachloride. I'm from the dirt under the back porch. From the plants around, she writes, she's from the plants around you. And then she writes, I'm from fudge and eyeglasses. Again, objects. But then she goes to, I'm from the, what? Know-it-alls and the pass-it-ons. What is the strategy there? What's going on there in the poem? Family system. It describes families, right? Right? And how families behave. And also what families say. Yeah. The perk up and pipe down, right? So what did you hear, in when you were growing up? I didn't hear things so much as, sort of respond to the death look. My mother used to have this look of death. If the kids were doing something, she'd go, and you're like, oh my God. So I might write, I'm from the look of death, right? So what is your experience, and how do you sort of notate that? How do you put it into words? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I'm from the various people. From the finger my grandfather lost to the auger. And then Ella George Lyon goes to a very small space. Under my bed was a dress box, spilling old photographs. So then this sort of documented history that she finds. And then she speaks to the family tree. So consider using this poem by George Ella Lyon as a model of composition for your own Where I'm From poem, and think about your own name as you're composing the poem. We have 5 minutes left, which means that it gives you a nice opportunity to begin your poem, students, if you would like, and then we're going to have, Yolanda, we're going to have the gospel choir. Okay, the Kumbha singers. All right, so 5 minutes to compose, if you'd like. And thank you.
So while we are waiting for our group to assemble as they come in now, is there we want to give you an opportunity to share your poem. We thank you for sharing yours. But if there's anyone else who wants to share what they have thus far, we're happy to hear it in this room. So I'll give you 1 minute to think about it, and then we'll have our singers come. Anyone?
Or sharing of their names, where their names are from.
Or sharing where your name is from.
Well, in my family, there's no choice what to name. I'm named after my father's father. In the Sephardic Jewish tradition, the first boy is always named after the father's father. The first girl is always named after the father's mother. So my first sister is my father's mother's name, and so there are 3 other Abraham Avadis because my father had 3 brothers who had first sons whose names. So I've got other cousins who have the same name. So it's kind of this whole tradition. So anyway.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? 1 or 2 more. Yes.
So my name originally was Salomons and was changed to Sainville, which came out of French Huguenot background, meaning without a village. And so it has Jewish ancestry, and then it was lost. And so now I don't let anybody take my name, Sanville. Even when I'm married, I kept Sanville, because nobody's taking this name away again.
Okay. Thank you. 1 more. Anyone?
Yvonne wants to say something.
Yvonne. Yes.
Well, I'll read my whole poem.
Thank you. Read your poem.
I don't know if I can use my... They survived. The ones who chose my name ran from Belgium, fled from Frankfurt, landing in a big apple across the ocean, creating a French memento, moi, Yvonne. A link to Anvers of the past, before the bouts of treachery, to a freedom with a view of the Bronx and an infant with a name in French.
Oh, thank you. So thank you for participating in our interactive activity. Thank you, Danielle, for leading us in that. And now I'm going to pass the mic on to our dear committee member, Rodney Duran. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am so excited right now. You just don't even understand. I'm really appreciative of this opportunity whereby we can share, some singing with my community where I work. Kumbha is a fantastic choir that's been around since 70. Thank you. Boy, I remember that. Since 1970, and, the name means to create. That's right. It's a Swahili word that means to create. You think I should know that by now, but sometimes my mind goes crazy. But I am so appreciative of them being here. They just got back from their tour down south in North Carolina and Tennessee, and they came back Sunday. Most of them are in school, but some of them have, made this time available to share. And I am so appreciative of that. So despite the colds and voices might be a little, I want you to just enjoy as they come and sing. I introduce to you Kumba.
Hello. Hello. My name is Sheldon Reed. I'm the director of the Kumba Singers. You guys come on. They're waiting for a cue of some sort, I think. We're really glad to be here to share with you. Kumba is a choir that celebrates the creativity and spirituality of Black culture. This year we're celebrating our 45th anniversary, which is fantastic. And we're going to have a huge concert April 11th. And you'll see lots of information about that. But we'd love for you all to come out. What we wanted to do today is just share a couple of selections from our repertoire for you. One of the things that we appreciate, so Kumba, in celebrating creativity and spirituality of Black culture, that's a lot, right? It's not just choral music, obviously. So we have dance and spoken word and things of that nature, not all of which we'll do today, but one of the things we appreciate most about Maya Angelou in particular, but this idea of finding your voice, right? Being in a time where you may not have a creative space or feel like you have any outlet, and the arts being an avenue to express yourself. So we wanted to start with a couple of anthems. So the first is kind of a mashup. The first is Lift Every Voice and Sing, which is often referred to as the Black National Anthem. But complexed with that, we're going to sing a song that Kumba's been singing since its inception, Kosi Sikeleli Africa. Kosi Sikeleli Africa was a song of resistance against the apartheid regime. Now, currently it's been incorporated into what is now their national anthem, but before that it's always been this song of freedom. And so we're going to sing those two for you. And because they are anthems, we do ask if you're able that you could stand with us. Thank you.
Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise, high as the listening skies. Let it resound, loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Kosi Sikeleli Africa, malupanganisu pundo wayo, izwa imitangazo yetu. Kosi Sikelela, tina lusapolwayo.
Woza moya.
Sikelela, Kosi Sikelela.
Woza moya.
Sikelela, Kosi Sikele. Woza moya. Ulimwele. Kosi Sikelela, tina lusapolwayo. Oinapoluka seshabasaetu, ofetiseti twale maswenyeho. Morena boluka se shabasa etu, ofetiseti twale maswenyeho. Seboluke, morena, seboluke, se shabasa etu, se shabasa, South Africa.
So we want to do a little bit of journey through time, I guess. So starting with something from the continent, moving into the spiritual tradition, right? The spirituals are songs that came out of the slave tradition. This one is one of our favorites. It's a Kumba standard. It's called Hold On Just a Little While Longer.
Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Everything will be all right. Everything because everything will be alright. Don't you know that everything will be alright?
Part of the outflowing, one of the many things that has come out of this group is this men's a cappella group, Call to Praise. So we'd like to do a few numbers, give the choir a little bit of a break, but also give you a chance to hear Rodney sing. Because isn't that really what it's all about? I'd like to start with a prayer.
Give us this day our daily bread. You said you would supply all our needs according to your riches. I have but to ask, and I shall receive. Shall receive to go from here and share this love you gave to me, to show someone who's lost and help them find their way. The way to truth and faith, so they can be free like me, free like me. Oh Lord, we need your love. Lord, we need your peace and your joy. We need your joy. This day, Lord, we thank you for this day.
Just so you know, the young lady who was singing solo on hold, that was my daughter. Proud Papa moment, proud Papa moment. Aaliyah. So you can see where she gets all her talent from. Your mother? Oops. I'm going to sing a song entitled Rain for you right now. It's gonna rain It's gonna rain. You'd better get ready and bear this in mind. God showed Noah the rainbow sign. It won't be water, but fire next time. It's gonna rain. You better get ready and bear this in mind. God showed Noah the rainbow sign. It won't be water. Way back in the Bible days, Noah told the people that it's gonna rain. And when he told them, they paid him no mind. So when the floods came, they were all left behind. Rain, it's gonna rain. You better get ready and bear this in mind. God showed Noah the rainbow sign. It won't be water, but fire next time. And when the rain began to pour, they knocked on the window, they all knocked on the door. They didn't know exactly what to do. You wouldn't want this to happen to you. Rain, it's gonna rain. You better get ready and bear this in mind. God showed Noah the rainbow sign. It won't be water, but fire next time. Noah said, I'm sorry, my friend, but God's got the key and I can't let you in. If something don't happen to the hearts of men, the same thing is gonna happen again. Rain, it's gonna rain. You better get ready and bear this in mind. God showed Noah the rainbow sign. It won't be water. Now listen to the rain. Now. Ooh, oh, it's gonna rain, gonna rain. Please bear this in mind. God showed Noah the rainbow sign. It won't be water, no. Gonna rain, gonna rain. Please bear this in mind. God showed Noah the rainbow sign. It won't be water, but fire next time.
All right. You guys still feeling all right? We doing okay? Let's give it up one more time for Rodney. Okay. All right, this next one, we've done a few slower, a little more contemplative ones. If you feel so inclined on this one, feel free to help us out. You can clap a little bit. You can sing along if you know the words a little bit. Is that all right? You guys ready to help us out? I don't believe you. You guys ready to help us out? All right, there we go. All right, all right. Now people get ready, 'cause there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. That's what I'm talking about, tambourine right there. All you need is faith to hear the diesel humming. You don't need no ticket, you just get on board.
Come on, come on.
People get ready, there's a train a-coming. Don't need no baggage, you just get on board. Now all you need is faith to hear the diesel humming. Don't need no ticket, just thank the Lord. Now people get ready, there's a train to Jordan, and it's picking up everyone from coast to coast. Now faith is the key, open the doors up and board them. There's hope for all in him who loves us the most, yeah, yeah. Oh, see, there ain't no room now for the hopeless sinner who hurt all mankind just the same as own. Have pity on those whose hearts grow dimmer, 'cause there ain't no hiding place for you. Oh, now I'm people get there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith to hear the diesel humming. You don't need no ticket, just come on and get on board. Oh, just get on board. Come on, let me hear you say, come on. Just get on board. Get on board, come on. Get on board. Get on board. When you get on board, come on. When you way down low, just get on board. Now see, when you got nowhere to go, no, just get on board. Just get on board. Come on, everybody now. Come on. Before it's too late now. Just get on board.
Thank you, Call to Praise. We have one more time for. We'd like to do two more numbers with the full choir for you. So we're going to do Our Lives, one of the poems that you've all heard, which is one of her most famous poems. Ben Harper actually set it to music, and we've done an a cappella arrangement based on that, so we'd like to share that with you. write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me down in the very dirt, and still like the dust I'll rise. Does my happiness upset you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I will walk like I got a diamond mine breaking up in my front yard. So you may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, but I'll rise, I'll rise, I'll rise, 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 out of the shacks of history's shame, up from a past rooted in pain. I'll rise, I'll rise, I'll rise, rise, rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness offend you? Why are you beset with gloom? Because I walk like I got a gold mine breaking up in my living room. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, but I'll rise, oh, I'll rise, out of the shacks of history's shame, up from a past rooted in pain. Oh, I'll rise, I'll rise, I'll rise, out of the shacks of history's shame, up from a past rooted in pain. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I'm bare on the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, using the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. So you may cut me with your eyes, but I'll rise. Oh, yes, I'll rise. And out of the shacks of history's shame, from a past rooted in pain, I'll rise. Oh, yes, I'll rise. I'm gonna rise. I'll rise. I'll rise, rise, rise. Oh, yes, I'll rise. I'll rise. I'll rise, rise. All right. Thank you, thank you. So the last one, again, we're just happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. We hope you've enjoyed what you've heard thus far. We hope you had. We hope that you've enjoyed the entire program. I know there have been some wonderful things. We hope you learned something and shared something and grew a little bit. This last song is an arrangement. Song says, I just can't give up now. But we hope to see you all again, on April 11th at our concert. Shameless plug. But more importantly, we hope that you just got a chance to sit and reflect in all that great artistry, black art, black music, where it comes from, what it's rooted in. It's a space we like to spend time in, and it's very important to us. So thank you for allowing us to share.
There will be mountains that I will have to climb, and there will be battles that I will have to fight. Victory or defeat, it's up to me to decide. But how can I expect to win if I never tried? Oh, I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. Never said there wouldn't be trials, never said I wouldn't fall, never said that everything would go the way I wanted to go. But when my back is against the wall and I feel all hope is lost, I just lift my head up to the sky and say, help me to be strong. And oh, I just can't give up now. I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. Oh, no, you didn't bring me out here to leave me lonely. Even when I can't see clearly, I know that you are with me, so I can't. Woo, yeah, yeah. That I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me no, the road would be easy. But hey, I don't believe I can't give up now. No, I can't. And I've come too far, too far. Nobody told me the road would be easy, and I don't believe I can't give up now. Said I've come too far, too far. No one said it would be easy. Nobody told me it would be easy. I don't believe it this far. I don't believe. No, I don't believe. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
Thank you, Kayumba singers, for coming and taking time to be with us today. Thank you. And thank you, Rodney, for sharing your family with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you. And at this time, I'm going to ask Shabazz to come forward and close out our program. And thank you again for coming today.
Thank you, Yolanda. And one big round of applause to Kumba Singers and to all of you. Well, one very important philosophy of Maya Angelou herself is that we, mankind, wait a minute, did I say mankind? Did I just say that? Oh, maybe womankind. Peoplekind and humankind. So she wants us to always believe that or assume that people always have good intentions. And our presence here at this very moment is a reflection of that, a reflection or symbolic of that noble thought. We are here because we want to honor and celebrate this huge literary figure, an educator, an activist. We're here to celebrate her. And we did, didn't we? We did. We've just done that. We did that with joy, with reverence, and with reflection. We did that in many ways. First, through that awesome, inspiring, soul-searching keynote speech, which captured everything that we've done this evening: love, race, social justice, gender, and many more. And to follow up on that, we did have our community, Leslie community poets. They were here and shared those wonderful original writings, excerpts from those original poems written by Maya Angelou. Many of us here have been touched. We looked back, we got connected. How much more could we honor this great figure? Oh, lest I forget. You, the rising poets, you follow the footsteps of Maya herself. You wrote your authentic poems. You shared your authentic poems to affirm who we are, our identity, and our culture. Rising poets, didn't you do that? Yes. You did. And of course, our great Kumba singers. May I see the leader again? Oh, Rodney. Well, take this for him and for his team. They rocked the house. They did. And we moved, we clapped, we felt that spirit pouring on us because of what you shared with us. You uplifted our souls. So, I have nothing more to say, but to just have all of you join me to thank everyone who has contributed to organizing this event. I want to thank the LUDC, Leicester University Diversity Council, and especially the chair and everyone on that committee for helping us pull all this together. I want to thank the chair as well as the Celebrations and Events Committee, Philip and the team. They are right here. Raise your hands. As well as the Communications Committee of LUDC. They are here. They all helped to put this together. And I want to go straight to the keynote speaker, my dear colleague, Professor, laureate, poet laureate of the city of Boston, Danielle George. For really helping us to reconnect with the lady. Through that speech, I found myself back. I retraced my steps back to the University of Ghana, Legon, where I went to school. Maya Angelou was there at the university in Ghana, was the founding member or lecturer there in the 1960s, the School of Performing Arts, Music and Drama, where I came from. She was there, and she led the foundation. My being an artist and educator could be traced to her. I'm a product of that school, so I felt very nostalgic about your keynote speech and for everything, the songs and the poems that you shared. I'm really connected to her. So thank you. Thank you again, Kumba Singers, for taking your time, coming over to share with us. And thank you, Rodney. And thank you, rising poets, accomplished poets. Thank you for coming. And to finally bring this event to a close, just take a look at the program, look at the back. We are all going to do a choral call and response presentation here, just an excerpt from Maya's poem, Still Arise. So, I am the leader, in quotes. I'm going to read my part, and we should all join in and read with joy and reverence. This is our last moment to bring this event to a close. So please stand. Just like moons and like suns,
with the certainty of tides,
just like hopes springing high,
still I'll rise.
You may shoot me with your words.
You may cut me with your eyes.
You may kill me with your hatefulness.
But still, like air, I'll rise. I
Rise.
rise.
Arise. Arise.